nice lunch and that you're not going to fall asleep over the next hour. Before things get cracking this afternoon, if I could just put your attention to the fire escapes. So if the fire alarm does sound, if I could ask you all to leave in an orderly fashion. There are escapes on both sides, and there's plenty of members of staff of the National Library always here to guide you on your way. If I can also ask you to make sure that your mobile phones are off or on silent for the duration of this. I'll now hand over to Linda Thomas.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. A sgai fynd rownd. Wel, llawer o ddiolch i chi am y croeso. Well. Ac hefyd, diolch yn fawr iawn am y gwahoddiad i dod yma heddiw. Mae o'n braf i ddweud y gwir i cael dod allan o swyddfa a gweld rhywbeth mor llwyddiannus yn symud yn ei blaen. My name is Linda Thomas. I'm the director of Cymal, and I'm delighted to have the invitation to be with you today. Not often that a civil servant manages to get out of the office, and certainly not to something as exciting and as interesting as this afternoon. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also extremely grateful. I mean, I think this really, from me, it says it's a welcome and an introduction, but can I turn it, please, into a thank you? Diolch yn ymladwy chi gyd am bopeth. Because the People's Collection is now, I think, 5 years old. I'm trying to think, I'm ageing fast as well. And I think it's good to also reflect on how far we've come, and the fact that we have come so far is due to all of you. When we started the People's Collection, and when the Welsh Government wanted to develop a digital heritage programme, from the very start, it was very clear to us that its success would be dependent on the enthusiasm and commitment of people in their communities who wanted to record their heritage, their interests, their stories, before, perhaps sadly, some of this disappears. And that's why I think we were so keen to set something up which would enable you, using digital technology, to do what you wanted to do. And you've done so many fantastic things. I think that's what the beauty of the People's Collection is. It's not restricted to any particular time, any place, any person. It is whatever is of interest to you. And you know, whatever is of interest to you has been of interest to everybody else, not only in Wales, of course. I'm delighted to see Dave Williams here from Pennsylvania. I mean, absolutely fantastic. How else, except through digital technology, could we ensure that those relationships and those friendships develop? So I think I'm very, very grateful in coming today to express the Welsh Government's appreciation for all the work you've done, all the work you have done, and hopefully, more importantly, all the work you will be doing after being, I'm sure, enthused by today's event. The digital heritage stations, I think, is an important development because beyond using the software and using the, hopefully now, much better access methods to record all your digital material, the heritage stations, I think, are an important development because sometimes it's not easy, is it, if you're trying to get a group together to find somewhere where you can go, where the equipment will be there, where hopefully the support will be there, to enable you to do that at will. And I think we do see these as an important focal point for local history societies, for local history groups, for individuals or small groups, to actually be able to come together and organise your material and put it on. And of course, more importantly, to be able to store that material then for other people in Wales and beyond to enjoy. So I do hope you take advantage of the heritage stations as they start to be implemented, and I do appreciate this is an incremental process. For those of you fortunate to have one, I do hope you're going to make good use of them. And for those of you who don't have one, jump up and down and say you want one too. It's always very helpful with politicians in my experience. And really success breeds success. So the more that the People's Collection can be used, then clearly the more reason there is to invest in it from the Welsh Government perspective. Now, I know I'm a rather poor substitute this afternoon, and I'm sorry about that. The Deputy Minister for Culture, Sport and Tourism, Ken Skates, was really looking forward to coming today. Perhaps also, although as Culture Minister, he does get to go to quite exciting places. But unfortunately, the logistics were just beyond him to get to Aberystwyth today, and I know he was deeply disappointed because this is very close to his heart. As a younger person, somebody to me who looks about the same age as my oldest son, but somebody who is incredibly able and incredibly committed to Wales's culture. He does see digital as the way forward, and he's delighted, I know, that we are using digital technology in a meaningful and creative way to develop the People's Collection. And I think it was brought home to me when iBeacons, which some of you may know about, this really exciting project which is going to make it much easier to access digital information at sites. We had prepared an iPad for him, and I think, Hazel, you've got it already. And normally, as is the way with ministers, you have to explain to them how it works and what you want them to do. But our minister just grabbed it and said, oh, brilliant, and then went off and started to use it. And I think that sort of ease of use and also that enthusiasm that he brings to this, I'm sure is going to help you in terms of his support taking you forward. But I know he is delighted with the work you're all doing. And as he goes around Wales, I know he is asking, you know, is there anywhere he can go to where the People's Collection is being meaningfully used? So I'm sure you will see more of him. There's also, I think, a really important policy agenda for us here, apart from the importance of preserving Wales's heritage and culture in a digital format. There is an important skills agenda here because we've always felt that if you want to encourage people to use new technology, you have to find a reason for doing it. And feeding people's passions and people's interest in their own background and the community that they live is a really good way of engaging with people who perhaps technology might be seen as a barrier or as a difficulty. So therefore, you know, I'm really keen that we also exploit the interest that the People's Collection generates to find a painless way for people to learn more about new technology and to see that it actually has a particular benefit for them. So from that perspective, I think it's really good that we are providing the support for the accredited training, and I really would like to thank the People's Collection team here for all the commitment they've shown in developing this accredited tool, because it means not only are you learning, but you have something which demonstrates that you have reached a particular accredited level, and that's so important when you're looking to develop your own career and your own skills. So that's another, I think, benefit from getting involved in the People's Collection. The People's Collection champions, you know, it's so fantastic. Can I take my hat off, if I had one, literally to all of you. And I know that Alan George and Steve Brewer from Merthyr are here today, and thank you very much for coming. But it's people like you why this investment is so important. So can I personally thank you, and can I thank everybody who is undertaking this really important role of enthusing your communities in what the possibilities are for recording it. And it's so important. I think I have got to the elderly stateswoman stage, or the grandmother stage, I think is probably more appropriate, where I can now physically see what's been lost. And I say to myself, why didn't I record somebody? Why didn't I talk to people at the time? Even things now when I see film of the 1970s, which put both of my children into pure hysterics when they see photos of their dad in flares with sideburns. They can't believe that he ever did something so absolutely dreadful. But when I look back, it just looks so far away. And that's something, you know, I was an adult at that time. It's so easy to think that everything is going to be there forever and that everything will be remembered. So this real importance of getting it down and getting people's stories, making sure that when you have photographs of somewhere, there is the story associated with it, where it was, who were the people, because so quickly that information disappears and evaporates. So again, it's so important that you continue to do this work, not just for your own passion and enjoyment, but also to tell the story of Wales, because this is where the People's Collection has its role, and this is where I hope it goes forward. Now, I know Rhynell Jones is not here today. I know Rhynell's not here because I've got a word in Edgeways. So, but I know his dedication is immense, and I would like to pay tribute to him. I mean, he's somebody, the People's Collection wouldn't have developed in the way it has, and as fast as it has, because it's only been going 5 years, without Rhynell's incredible energy. But he's also surrounded by a wonderful team. So can I take this opportunity to thank the team for their work and to give them every support to carry on doing it. How they manage to give such a personal service when they've got all of Wales to look after, I have no idea. But it's very admirable, and it's something I think that, again, we want to try and make sure we can support going forward. Can I also pay tribute to the National Library of Wales, the National Museum of Wales, and the Royal Commission? Because it's quite a commitment when you get these very large, august bodies to work together, unstintingly together. And very, in my sort of experience of seeing them at it, in a way where they don't stand on the dignity of their own organisations, but they just work for a common purpose and a common objective. And that in itself, I think, is very admirable as well. So I would like to thank both the boards and the senior management of the organisations for actually, again, putting so much time and commitment into ensuring that the People's Collection develops. But can I end by repeating my earlier remarks? The People's Collection is yourselves. It's not a government initiative in the way that one sees other initiatives. We may have perhaps provided a modest amount of funding to establish it and hopefully to maintain the infrastructure which enables you all to work. But the People's Collection to succeed has to have your commitment and your support. And now by coming here today, I think that's an excellent way to start off. But I hope by coming here today, you will also learn from one another, and you will go from here, as I'm sure I will, enthused by wanting to do more and wanting to ensure that you play both your individual part in this important programme, but also, you know, as a group and as a community. So I hope I can look forward to another 5 successful years. Goodness knows what you can achieve in 10. You've achieved so much in 5. I will be an elderly grandmother by then, but I'm hoping I'll do my bit and start digitising, and perhaps I might learn something as well, Hazel. So diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd am eich amser, a gobeithio nwch chi mwynhau y prynhawn. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I hope you enjoy the day.
Well, thank you very much, Linda. May I also extend our thanks to you for all the support that you and the staff at Cymal show us, and in particular Rebecca. If we ever need any advice, we know exactly who to turn to. So Linda has nicely rounded off and explained all about the 3 major partners that deliver on this programme. But before we start, I thought it might be an idea for you to get to meet all of us, because my team here, which I call my dream team, we're out in the community, so all the people that are here that we've worked with in the community know us. I chi gyd sy'n dod o'r gymuned yn nabod ni, ond mae 'na lawer sy'n gweithio tu ôl y llenni. There are many that work behind the scenes. So we thought today, and in particular because we're joined by David Pritchard and Alan Hughes, who have taken over in the new restructuring here at the library, they will now be responsible for the way we deliver the People's Collection on behalf of the National Library. So it's also an opportunity for them to see the faces, to get to see the people. So I'm grateful to Berian for putting all the slides together. So if we start from the top, we've already mentioned Reinald, and all of us as a team hoping that everything is going to be all right for Reinald this week. I know he's going to be missing today like mad, because oedd e really moyn bod yn rhan o'r dathlu, because we're here to celebrate today. So next to Reinald we have David James. David is the head of the technical strand. He's the technical strand leader at the National Museum of Wales. Mae fe'n arwain ar y ffrwd technoleg. Next to David we have Kay Hansen. Kay, would you little wave? David isn't with us, but Kay is. So Kay is the mae'n datblygwr digidol. She is our digital developer. Next to Kay we have June Francois. So she is the head of marketing. Mae June yn bennaeth marchnata yn yr Amgueddfa Cymru. And next to June we have Ellen. So Ellen, maybe you could Ellen Davies, have a little wave. Ellen has only just recently joined our team, but she's been doing sterling work on all the Twitter and Facebook accounts that we hold. And that has actually driven a lot of interest to the website. So very clever marketing tools there. Then Jessica sadly had to phone this morning because she had terrible toothache with the danod and the neithur, so she had to find a dentist very quickly, so sadly she's not with us. But she works alongside Reinallt up at the Llanberis Slate Museum, and mae hi'n gydlynydd gweinyddol, so she is the administration coordinator, so she keeps us all on track for the various meetings that we all have to attend. Then we have Samantha Willis. Samantha is leading on the learning strand of the People's Collection Wales, and you're going to get to learn a little bit more about that later on when Kay gives her presentation. And then we have Danielle Cowell, who is, I'm not going to read out the full title, because when Ellen gave it to me earlier on, it was like it's so long, but basically she manages the education department on behalf of the National Museum, and she oversees the work that Samantha does. So, you all know me, well, most of you will know me. Next to me is Rhian Davies. Rhian Davies joined our team last October as the new Community Engagement Officer. Hi nawr sy'n arwen ar y ffrwd ymgysylltu cymunedol. And what Rhian has brought to the table is 20 years of experience of having worked here at the National Library. And I can't tell you how valuable that has been to me, for me, who's only been working here 4 years. I didn't know who to ask for anything. You just say, Rhian, and she's on the phone straight away, and she solves things so quickly. So diolch I ti, Rhian. Dwi'n gwerthfawrogi dy gefnogaeth di. Then we have Mike Jones. Mike leads on the technology. He's our technology officer. Mike does all the API and the bulk uploads that some of your groups might be interested in if you're tired of uploading from the front end, because it does take time, and we do ask you to complete all the necessary metadata and make sure that the copyright is fine. And I can see David nodding there. We're slightly strict on that, but I think it's worthwhile in the end because it means every picture has valuable information, which makes it more interesting for the viewer. So Mike can enable any of your groups to facilitate in that respect if you need to use that. Then we have Berian Elias. Berian has put the slideshow together for you today, and the talent of this young lad is phenomenal. I don't know what I would do without him on my team, to be honest. Alongside Griffith Jones, who again joined our team last October, everybody brings their own qualities and gifts to the team, and I think that's why we're able to do what we do, Linda. You know, it's cooperation, and it's not just us here at the National Library. It's the way we have all gelled as a team across the 3 partnership. And then Tom Pert, of course, who will be joining us later. He works at the Royal Commission and he leads on the innovation strand. Arloesi. He will be developing things like the eye beacons, the culture beacon, which I think he's going to speak to you about later on, and might be very interesting for some of the museums here. And I certainly, for a fact, know that Lampeter Hanes Llanbed Museum are quite interested in that because they already have the trails around the town. So the eye beacon is something they can adapt for that. And last but no means least, Helen Rowe from the Royal Commission. Helen is responsible for the moderation. She does a lot of work on the moderation of all the content that comes onto the site, which we check and double check for any inaccuracies. And you're also an archivist, so you work very closely with lots of groups, and I'm really excited about the next year because you're going to be doing a lot more work for us in the community. So there we are. So we are the team. And during a cup of tea, maybe later on, now you can put faces to the names. Do come along and have a little word and find out more from us. So I'm going to hand you over now to June Francois. Thank you.
So, Brynhilda, good afternoon. I'm just going to say, a few words basically in my role as strand leader for the marketing activities for People's Collection. I've been involved in the programme now for 4 years. I just want to give you a bit of an update in terms of the sort of marketing support that's available for you as volunteers and community organisations, as well as sort of like how we sort of like lead on promoting People's Collection Wales. Also, I wanted to extend my thanks as well to everyone for coming today, for this celebration. in terms of really valuing your role as ambassadors for People's Collection. What always really enthuses me are, you know, the stories that you uncover through your work as volunteers and community organisations. Because what sits at the heart of People's Collection, which I'll be going through in just a moment with this particular slide, is, you know, the philosophy. It's all about everyone uncovering their particular stories, whether it's as individuals living within the communities, if you're involved in a particular history society or community organisation, as well as the sort of like the, you know, national institutions through the partnership that are behind People's Collection with the National Museum, the Royal Commission, and also the National Library. And I think it's that actual output which actually really helps to enrich and demonstrate the actual value and core philosophy of People's Collection Wales, as we've heard, with how it was originally founded. In terms of the actual marketing support, the materials, which I think some of you may have seen already, there is a new printed marketing pack. So you'll all be given a copy of that later today in a goodie bag that we'll be handing out. There's also various materials available, such as the little flyers, which I know are very, very popular and widely used by the community engagement strands. So again, I think for your own areas of work, when you're sort of like introducing People's Collection or creating your own community events, there are those marketing materials available for you, you know, to give out. And as a new development, we're going to ensure that more of those materials will be available for you to download yourselves on the actual website. So that work is actually in the pipeline. So you'll be able to just go onto the website, download PDFs of this actual marketing pack, and there'll also be templates available of the flyer and posters. So that will be like a shell for you just to drop in your own details for any sort of like community activities that you're leading on. And those particular templates will all carry the People's Collection Wales branding. And this is what I wanted to move on to just here. I'm just looking for the little remote control thing. Oh, there it is, thank you. Because I just thought this would be really interesting for all of you as enthusiasts of the culture and history of Wales, in that little graphic device that you see at the top of all our marketing materials, as well as on the website and on the flyer, that actually represents the DNA of Wales. So that's the genetic information of Wales itself. And then so each colour, if you see on the right-hand side, each of those colours represents a particular aspect of People's Collection, because a brand actually represents your visual identity. So any sort of like, you know, a company, an organisation, a product or service, when they create a logo or visual identity, that's an expression of how, you know, what they want to actually project about themselves, what their values are, what they want, say, the customer, the user, to actually experience when they're engaging with the service, in this case, People's Collection, and also a shared set of values, you know, that for us who are actually involved in People's Collection, what we actually want to provide as an actual service and experience. So you can see right at the top there, what is the personality of People's Collection Wales? But whenever you look at that little graphic strip, that particular colour is actually represented by a number of ideas that you can see in the this lower part of the circle here, in terms of being warm and inviting, feeling energised, being together, which is very much what today's celebration is about, studious, telling your own history, and also that sense of optimism. And then the rationale for People's Collection over here, well, it covers all of these dimensions across the top of that circle, looking towards the future, education, cultural tourism, bringing people together, again, that sense of a shared history, space and time, engaging with the diaspora, which is what we see here today as well as a celebration of the past. And the People's Collection brand, what it actually conveys, with that historic representation being relevant, Welsh working class, so telling the stories of ordinary people. It's not just about the national institutions, being contemporary and being fun. And then People's Collection, how People's Collection, what it actually makes you feel, which is represented in the blue colour just over here. So that you know, the sense of sharing again, a shared family experience, you know, perhaps if you are working on activities together with your family members, sometimes feeling quite humble. I mean, quite often when I hear about some of the stories that are told or uncovered, they do make you feel quite humble, in the sense of, you know, that particular important historic occasion that's being told for the first time ever. being ready to investigate, but we're all involved in that particular activity and wanting to share new stories. Feeling quite uplifted actually by a lot of the activity, all the stories that are told, that sense of pride, being ready to learn, and the sense of nostalgia. And how, you know, the People's Collection brand, how it makes me look, well, it shows that, you know, we're in touch, we're being relevant, we're showing what we know, we're always ready to learn, that self-assurance, and again, sharing. So you can see that word share coming through quite strongly in terms of the People's Collection branding. And last of all, what the People's Collection brand, what does it do for me? Well, over here again, it's that sense of networking, which is what today's celebration is about. You know, inspiring you to find more. I mean, it's really heartening for me when I hear about how long many of these organisations have been going for, the history societies. There's always new information, new history there to be uncovered. Remembering the past, finding out who you are, and what makes me want, you know, to visit Wales, which sort of like links into cultural tourism down here in terms of telling all those new stories. So I'm just ending on that note, but you know, when you leave later on and you take away your goodie bag with all the, you know, the marketing materials inside there, just remember that that particular graphic device has been, you know, put together. It's designed with a very specific purpose in terms of telling the philosophy of People's Collection. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, June. Thank you very much, June. So, why did we decide today to have a day to celebrate? Beth oedd y rheswm tu ôl cynnal diwrnod I ddathlu? Well, you've heard already that there are 3 major institutions that deliver on the People's Collection Wales. But I lead on the community engagement strand here at the National Library of Wales, and I have the most amazing team that I work with. But we change and we share with the other teams as well. But we wanted to say thank you, basically, to all the people that we've come in contact with in the community. Chi I gyd sy'n eistedd gyda ni heddi. O'n I moyn rhoi cyfle I rhoi diolch o galon I chi am fod yn rhan o'r prosiect. We wanted to thank you for believing in us, for actually embracing the whole concept of the People's Collection Wales programme. So I'm going to start by introducing you to some of the champions amongst us here today. Mae yna bencampwyr yn ymplith ni heddi, a dwi'n falch iawn bod fi'n gallu cael y cyfle I rhoi diolch personol I chi yn gyhoeddus fel hyn. It's a lovely opportunity to be able to give you a personal but a public thank you as well for all the time. And I can see Mrs. Brewer, Mrs. George. No, Mrs. Brewer in the back there smiling because she knows what's coming up here. Sorry, Steve, if I'm embarrassing you already. So we're going to start with Alan George. We met Alan George at a meeting at the Sowar Chapel in Merthyr 2-3 years ago now. They had asked us to go and deliver training, and we met Alan. And Alan and the group later went on to establish the Merthyr Digital Forum Group, which is a very strong group. But interestingly enough for us, and I think I found this out totally by accident, we were putting some flyers together and we wanted to use images of Merthyr as part of those flyers. And Sean, who worked at the Sowar Chapel at the time, sent me an image of a gentleman. And you know how you get mixed up with emails. Sometimes you ask a question and the answer doesn't actually answer the question you asked, but something else. And I'd sent an email to Sean to ask him what the name of the gentleman was in the photograph that he had given me, somebody famous from Merthyr. And the answer I got back was, Alan George, it's from his website. So I'd never heard of Old Merthyr website. So I immediately used Google to search, and this is what I found. Look how many items Alan has on his own personal website, over 8,200 images. So when I first tried to talk to you, Alan, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, you were a little bit apprehensive at the beginning of sharing those images all over again with the People's Collection Wales, which I totally understood. It's taken you years of your time to produce this wonderful website. But what we managed to persuade him to do was to create here his own user profile page on the People's Collection Wales, including the website to his own, the web address to his own site, so people finding Alan's images on the People's Collection Wales website can then go and find more. And he's actually told me that it has driven more traffic to his site. So that's one way you can use the People's Collection Wales as a platform for your own group, for your own website, to help in that way. These are some of the wonderful images that Alan has. We've used this one in our own promotional work when we launched last September in Merthyr, and I believe that's when Linda met both Alan and Steve. And our next one is Steve Brewer. Steve, again, we met at SOAR about the same time. Immediately they became enthused by the website, but we weren't expecting them to do as much so quickly, but they both did. Steve is actually an expert on all the chapels in Merthyr, and that's so valuable to have somebody who has that knowledge, but to then be able to share that knowledge with us so that it's preserved forever. And Steve has actually produced a book on the chapels of Merthyr, but he's also uploaded several amazing images. And this one in particular I love, because chapels are falling down. People don't go as often. They become derelict like this, or they have change of use or whatever. So to capture images like this is so important. And in 100 years' time, I'm hoping people will look at the People's Collection Wales website and think, gosh, was life really like that in Wales? You know, so it is important that we do this. Our next one is Gethin Shepherd, and I'm happy to see you with us today, Gethin. I'm going to mention Melanie as well, who works at the Cowbridge Library. Gethin works at the Barry Library. Melanie's unable to be with us, but she's as valuable and has worked very closely with Gethin, promoting open digital heritage days, where they've worked with the communities. And these are some of the items that they've uploaded. They cover the whole Vale of Glamorgan libraries. So for us, that's really important. It doesn't mean that that particular digital heritage station is static in one place. It actually moves around, so it covers all the libraries in that area. And we're just going to play you a little film now. Gethin approached us because in their archives, they had a selection of old VHS videos which they couldn't play. And Gethin wanted the public to be able to have access to that, so they brought them here to the National Library. We worked with the team in Screen and Sign, and they reformatted those into a more modern version, and then we gave you copies, which you've taken back to the library. Now the public have access to that. But for today's purpose, Berian has actually edited one of these clips, and I think you'll understand when you hear it why it's important, what Linda said about recording people's stories.
And I started work on the 1st of May 1921. And it was hard to get a job. And I wanted to go and work in a draper's shop. Went everywhere, no, there was no jobs. And not even to be an apprentice, because you had to find £10 to be an apprentice. Well, my mother didn't have £10. So the one day we were in Madge Evans, and my mother asked her if she had a vacancy for an apprentice. And she said, well, I do want one, really, but the thing is the money. My mother misunderstood us. She thought she meant she couldn't afford to pay. And our mum said, she always looked ahead, you know. Well, it's not the money so much as getting her in somewhere to be learning something. Oh, she said, do you mean that? And our mum said, yes, thinking that I was going to have less than what was usual. Instead of that, used to work 6 months for nothing.
So isn't that a wonderful example of why we need to be recording these stories? And I'm sure, Gethin, the public now in the library in Barry are getting a lot of enjoyment revisiting all these old films. So we move on now to David Swindenbank, who I think I met at the Digital Jam in Treco Bay, if I'm correct. And I was giving a presentation about the benefits of the People's Collection Wales, and David immediately came up and asked if he could attend one of our training days, because he was very interested in establishing a digital heritage station at the museum. The museum, if I'm right, David, relies entirely on volunteers, and it's self-funded. So to be able to establish a digital heritage station there actually gave them a little bit of weight if the council were proposing to close, and I'm hoping you've achieved that aim. But we were going in the right direction with it, and David has been uploading so many images, and I have to apologise to you because I think I might have deleted one last night when I was trying to moderate, so we'll talk to you about that later. So it's quite amazing, really, some of the images that you've unearthed, and I know you've done a lot to commemorate the First World War, and you've got a special day that you invited me to if I could come, where you're all going to dress up or whatever, and I was very interested in the cooking of the old recipes that they used to have in that period of time. I absolutely love this image. If we don't digitize them, they end up in a box, and very often they end up in the skip. And we have loads of examples of that we've managed to rescue, and they're now available to view on the People's Collection. That's not to say that the collections from the three major institutions are not as valuable, because they are. But at the end of the day, this is the People's Collection Wales, so the people need to share. And I always quote John Davis, the late John Davis, when he said, "Ni'n gwybod digon am bytu'r bobl mawr." We know enough about the bigwigs. The People's Collection Wales is an opportunity to find out about bobl gwerin, the people. And I think we're doing that. I really think we're doing that. So, Emyr Price. Now, what a gentleman Emyr Price is. He came to see us because at the time he was leading, oedd e'n swyddog grantiau treftadaeth canolfan Tywi, fi gael yn iawn I chi, Emyr. He was the Heritage Grant Officer for the Tywi Centre, and over a period of 3 years, if I'm right, worked with over 55 groups. So what happens at the end of an HLF funding when you've worked with groups, and what do you do with the results of those project outcomes? So Emyr came to see us to see if there was any potential in the People's Collection Wales working with these groups to get them to share the evidence, the content on the People's Collection Wales, which is what we've done. And he invited Rhian to go to the launch event that you had in Newton House so that she could meet some of these groups. And Rhian actually met, if I get this right, David Thomas, Hanes Blaenau Tywi. Their project had put together, and I think Rhian's got the book here if anyone wants to have a little look at it. They put they put this book together, which is a little bit like our Cynefin project here at the National Library. Mae gyda ni brosiect cyffroes iawn yn digwydd yma yn y Llyfyrgell Genedlaethol ar hyn o bryd, Prosiect Cynefin. The Cynefin project is in the process of digitising all the old tithe maps, and when that project is complete, all those old maps will be added to the mapping feature on the People's Collection Wales, which I find is one of the best-selling aspects of the site. If you want to sell the site to someone, just show them the mapping, and they just love the historic map. So, and it's lovely to see Einion Griffith and Caris Evans with us here, because Caris was one of the team members of the People's Collection Wales. She went on to work for dvd2, but she's about to start working on the Cynefin project. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of interaction again, Caris, and maybe she can come and support some of our community engagement activities, because at the end of the day, the project will feed into ours. So this was a very interesting one. Rhian and Griffith went to meet with this gentleman, and he was kind enough to give them the book, which they then digitised and have uploaded copies from those pages onto the website, which is giving them more publicity, if you like, and more people will find out now about that project. So we were grateful when Emyr came to see us, but I have to admit, we took advantage of him at the time, because he just happened to mention that he was about to go out to Patagonia. And of course, as you know, we have a Patagonian appeal. They're celebrating 150 years this year. The British Council have actually funded my team to go out to Patagonia in September to train people in Patagonia in the museums and to set up a digital heritage station out there, because now is the time really to document all that history. So when Emyr told us he was going to Patagonia, we asked him if he would kindly take up some of our leaflets with him, which he did. And thank you, Emyr, because you made a number of contacts for us, and we really appreciate that. So if we move on to Ross Mather. Now, Ross came across the site by accident. we can take no responsibility of actually manage to hook Ross's interest. He found us by accident, had a look at the site and decided it was the best thing he'd ever seen. He has his own site. He's a retired policeman, but he's taken full advantage of the space available underneath your user profile page to say anything and everything about you. So as a group, a heritage group or whatever, this is where you want, use this. This is your notice board. Show off about what you do. Put in information about when you're open, or if you're looking for volunteers or whatever, or you can actually offer them free training if they become volunteers. But what Ross has done, a little bit like Alan George, he embedded his web address within there, and that drove traffic then, to his website. And he got in touch with us to say that people had come across his items of interest on our website and then gone to his to find out more. So we know that it works as a marketing tool for you. You can't use the People's Collection Wales website to market directly, but indirectly embedded as a web address to your own web area, then you can. And Ross has a number of interesting images on our site. But before I move on to our next champion, he phoned me this morning at 7 because his son was unwell, so he couldn't make it. So they methu dod achos oedd ei fab yn sal. And as you do, quickly send an email back, oh, Ros, could you give me a quote? So this is the email, which I quickly printed off while everyone was having lunch. Sorry, Hazel, I really wanted to be with you today, but we can't because, he goes on about his son. But he says, the main thing that I have found good about PCW is, as you know, many things, artifacts, photographs, etc., etc., which go into a museum or archives, often are not seen again. Why? Because they go into archives or storage. So the PCW allows anyone who has a computer to gain easy access to our history and heritage at just a click of a mouse. There is no having to make appointments, no travelling, no waiting for appointments. It's instant Welsh history. Contributors make it available to anyone from anywhere in the world, all at the click of a mouse. And I'm so grateful to him for sending that, because that is just a perfect quote, which I think we can use time and time again. So we're really, really grateful to Ross. And he would have spoken today. I don't think our champion concept or programme would have meant anything without this gentleman. We met Maldwyn 2-3 years ago at a training day that we delivered in Llansannan. He came along, but he was actually representing at the time Betws and Rhos and Llanelian Historical Societies. Immediately, I think before we even touched back home in Aberystwyth, Maldwyn had opened an account and started uploading some of the most amazing images. Now, he was very fortunate at one time in his life to be 1/5 owner of an aeroplane and used that time sensibly with his camera, taking aerial photographs of anything that he saw, but always around Wales. Now, there's only one other contributor with similar collection, and that's the Royal Commission. So when this came through for us, it was so refreshing and so different, and we really, really value the contribution that he made, 522 alone, just on this site. He has, this is just one example, but he has this other site now. He's opened up another site about the castles of the native Welsh princes. And it's well worth you having a look at that, because this, for me, is what makes the People's Collection so special. It's not just the images, it's the story that goes, the description that goes with those images. So we're really, really, really grateful to you, Maldwyn, and we're really happy that you're able to be with us today. So before we move on, at very short notice, I asked Emyr if he would kindly step in the breach instead of Ross, just to say a few words. So I'd like to welcome you up now, Emyr, if you wouldn't mind. And please give him a round of applause and encourage him on his stage.
Thank you very much. As you know, Hazel's very persuasive, isn't she? No sooner had I walked through the door, there was a little bit of a nudge, and could you help us out for a moment? I've been caught out a few times in one respect, but it's a pleasure to be caught out. Some of the material that we produced from the previous heritage grants based in Llandailo, it was excellent material. One was a HLF/RDP grant, which is European funding, and the second one was purely a heritage grant with RDP funding, again, money from Europe. And of course, when these projects close, you really wonder what's going to happen to them, because it is a bit of an archive as well. We have a website, it's not as popular as I think the People's Collection by any means, and people can access that material any time. But of course, it was great when Hazel perhaps became involved and immediately cottoned on to the fact that we did have an enormous amount of very good material, like the Blind Eye Towie material that you just saw there. So really, it was almost what you call a no-brainer to get in touch, to bring across as much material as we can, because there's open access to our material, because it's European funding, open access, and transfer that to the care of People's Collection. I think they'll be here till 2016 putting it all on, because there's an immense amount of stuff. But it's thanks to the team as well that perhaps that start has been made with some of the excellent material that's on there already. She caught me out again then, of course, as somebody who's started to become involved. Champion is the wrong word, having looked at some of the gents and ladies who put so much stuff on before perhaps I got involved. But then I got caught out a bit with the Argentina project, which went very well to Patagonia. But it's strange, it did give you a purpose, and it gave you a good link then with people whenever you went, because there's a massive Welsh connection there. And it was very nice to perhaps speak to people who could give you material and were more than pleased in linking into the websites they've got out there. They've got Facebook sites, they've got memory sites there as well. And once all that is linked up, it really does give us a huge advantage here that we can link up to one of the most important, I suppose, periods in Welsh history when perhaps there was a small little Wales being started somewhere else. A big thanks to the team. I've come to the training, and it's excellent training. I think it was the very first Welsh in Cymraeg Cynta, and it was very well run. It was very successful. It does skill you up. The one word I'd have to say, having worked with perhaps 55 different project groups with the Heritage Grant, there's an amazing breadth of skill and expertise out there that has to be tapped, that needs to be tapped. But I suppose it's an appeal as well. We need more resources for people like the People's Collection, good plug there, I hope, to get out there and to hopefully be able to record these things. Because as you say, once we close the door on these, you can't go back and revisit them if they've ended up, as you say, literally, we found material that perhaps could have ended up in skips, could have ended up anywhere, but where perhaps other people can see them. So I think it's a really good move forward, I think, to expand this sort of idea and to take it into the next level as well. There's some amazing digital material out there. I think iBeacons, and I think digital technology is going to go to all sorts of places in the future. And I think it does give, as the gentleman before mentioned, an opportunity for you to do it from your own sort of sitting room, really. So I can only encourage anybody sat out there, take the opportunity to be sort of involved with putting, even if it's, I've only put 30 or 40 odd photographs on. I've tried the front loading one to see if I can do it, and it's been reasonably successful, I think. But when people have got batches of these things, I think there's the expertise is here to help you put them on. So yes, look at your communities. I'm only starting sort of to explore the opportunities, as I'm very impressed with the word actually champion. I'll have to show it to my wife this evening when I go back. She doesn't think I'm a champion of too many things, but perhaps I've got the proof here now. But yes, I think if you can move forward in this direction, I think it'll give Wales a really good archive. The material I just quickly put on there from Patagonia is now. And of course I thought, well, I shouldn't put that stuff on, but I was reassured by the team. Well, in 10 years' time, now is history, and people might have forgotten about what it was like then. Goodness only knows with all the digital technology and how it's moving forward, what the next step is. I've been trying to look for one of those Apple Watches, but they're a bit expensive, I think, at the moment. But can you imagine the technology that's going to come becoming available? But thanks for the team. They've given us a really good start. I'm working with some volunteer groups now at the moment as well, just helping them get grants. And I'm going to pass the word on that we need more of these sort of stations around Wales. And only yesterday I was talking with the Tin Shed Museum in Larne, a little bit of a plug for them. If ever you get down there, and I think it's an excellent place to have somewhere where people come and scan their materials and put their stuff on there. So keep up the good work. thanks for becoming a substitute.
Peidiwch mynd efo.
Okay.
Dr Chris, David fan hyn. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Can we show our appreciation to them? Thank you. Peidiwch mynd So thank you, Emyr. What we want to do now, and June and Ellen, I think, are ready. All the volunteers, all the people who are champions, pencampwyr, they do it for the love, really. We offer no payment. We can give free training and support, but we have nothing that we can give you other than our sincerest thanks. But we want to take the time today to call upon the champions that I've mentioned. So if they could make their way down here, Steve and Alan and David. Emyr is with me already. Gethin, and Gethin can represent Melanie as well. We're going to just give you a little gift as a thank you from us. And Maldwyn, where's Maldwyn? I can't forget Maldwyn. Emyr. There we go. Nice photo opportunity as well. So June and Ellen are now going to make a presentation to each of our champions as a thank you. Yeah. So they all have a memory stick with the branding, the People's Collection Wales branding on, and a nice bag with the new cascadawerin.cymru People's Collection.Wales, because we've changed over now to the new address. Blocking the way. Isn't it great when you can ask someone to stand in and they just can speak like that eloquently? So diolch yn fawr iawn I Emyr, what a dig. So we're now going to move on to the digital heritage stations. This has been the main focus of our delivery, I suppose, in the last year. Well, for about 2 years now. We weren't sure how it was going to develop, but it was an initiative as an exit strategy, if you like, for the Digital Heritage in the Community project that Carys Evans and I delivered on behalf of the National Library of Wales. It was a Communities 2.0 funded project through Welsh Government and ERDF scheme. And our brief was to work with 700 individuals. We had to introduce them to IT for the first time. And because we were working for the People's Collection Wales website, it was the most amazing vehicle for doing that. We managed to work with over 900 people, and Jane Hutt came to visit one of our workshops in Llandovery. But as a result of that, because we were only working in Dyfed at the time, we had to set up or establish 3 digital heritage stations, one in Carmarthenshire, one in Ceredigion, and one in Pembrokeshire, which is what we did. But we're going to start with the ones that Gethin and Melanie then went on to deliver themselves, really, from their own initiative, having attended a training day with us, and they liked the concept. They already had equipment, so sometimes that can work in our favour as well. So this is a picture here of Gethin sitting at the computer. And if I'm right, Gethin, this was during one of your open days for Digital Heritage Open Days. And what you can do then when you've digitised the photographs is if you digitise them in the TIFF format that we suggest that you do in 300 dpi, you can then reproduce them for photos to put up on exhibition boards or whatever. And that master copy, we advise you to keep a copy and never play with it, But that's there then as digital archives for the future. And there's another nice photograph that was reproduced for your display boards. And I can see that you're following the system of getting everyone to write down the description, the metadata, signing consent form to allow you to repurpose all the material. And that's something that we cover during the training days. This is Melanie on the left. So you can see what they've done, and Cambridge and Barry Library. People love to come in and look at photographs, so it works in both ways. It actually drives traffic, not just to the website, but through your doors, which is so important today with all the cutbacks that there are happening. I think this is probably going to be quite a nice way of making sure that people use the facilities at the library. And it looks to me, getting that the days were very busy and well attended on all accounts. Then the one in Abergele, you've already met Maldwyn Hughes, our champion. Now, part of the work that we ask of our champions is to identify the potential for setting up digital heritage stations. Ni'n gofyn i'r pencampwyr os bod yn bosib iddyn nhw I weld potential mewn sefydlu gorsaf treftadaeth digidol yn ei hardal. So Maldwyn knew the ladies, and sadly Myfanwy and Sharon had to cancel this morning because Myfanwy had to take her mother to the hospital. So will you take back our sincere thanks to them for allowing you and facilitating you in developing the digital station at Abergele. And Maldwyn has done probably all the scanning himself, but he doesn't just stop there. He didn't just stop at scanning the material that was in the library. He contacted other groups in the area, and he keeps me updated constantly. I will get an email saying I've just been to speak with, or he might copy me in on an email to the local council where he's invited himself in to scan what they have. So he's doing amazing work up in the Abergele area, and you're a fine example, sir, if I may say so publicly here today. So thank you. So these are some of the images, and a lot of them were old slides, Maldwyn, if I'm right. So
yes, it's two collections, but I can't claim responsibility for the scanning.
oh,
There was a student working for, I think, the duration of the summer at the Sir Henry Jones Museum in Llangurniaw,
so you
outside Abergele.
yeah.
And it's a quiet little museum, an interesting one. So she did all the scanning, and there are two collections that I've scanned. The first one is slides, and the second one was photographs.
Fantastic.
Very roughly about 150 in each collection. And it's the uploading of the metadata that takes time.
I know,
I'm
but don't
fed up
forget,
of typing in Llangurniaw.
you can click and copy and draw the. We'll have to teach you how to use our spreadsheet, which just draws the corner down, and it just copies the same word into all the boxes for you. But we will.
Not
We
on
can.
the site, you got to go from one
On the site,
part
yeah,
to
it's a
the
bit
other.
different. So maybe taking advantage of our bulk upload would be a good idea. So we can talk to you about that.
Where's the fun in that?
This is why we love him so much, is it? Oh. So don't forget, if you do have people that come your way, like students, you know, we're here. We can come out as a team to train them then, and they can go on to do accreditation, which would look good on CV for any person maybe wanting to work in the sector. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move on to the accreditation. So the Sunderland Trust, is lovely that Mark Pittman is here with me today. The Sunderland Trust was our Pembrokeshire digital heritage station, if you like. These are the volunteers on the day that we went down to train. If you've never been, may I suggest that you take a visit. It's fabulous. They're relocated now into a newly converted chapel, and I know there have been a few hiccups in the development of the digital heritage station, but you brought along your colleague today, so I'm hoping after today you're going to go back even more enthused, and we will soon receive a phone call to go down and deliver some more training. So I'm really grateful that you're here with us today, and I hope you get a chance to discuss with everyone. And if
The other person from the Trust is Gareth Mills. Gareth Mills has been with the Trust for 18 months as a volunteer. He spent much of his working life as a history teacher other side of the coin that I'm on more the commercial side, although I fell in love with the People's Collection of Wales project, as you know.
Mm.
And I look forward to retiring in 2 years' time and be able to spend some time on it. However, Gareth is now a trustee. The reason I prompted him to come here today was because he can now provide the impetus within the trust to get this going.
Fantastic. And where are you, Gareth?
I'm sure in the next 12 months you'll see.
Has he gone? Did Gareth go after lunch?
Gareth had to go.
Yes, that's right. So will you tell him we're really looking forward to that phone call? Brilliant.
Anytime, Adrian.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you for the support you showed us even in the early days, because we were trialling when we came to you and we weren't sure if it was going to work, but it's proven that it has, you know.
You know, I'm slightly embarrassed with the lack of progress, but
Well, I know.
because you know, that's been very, very
Because we rely, and it's a good point to make, Mark, because we rely on your kindness, we make no pressures. We will move and work with you at the pace that's comfortable for you. We never expect you to do 24/7, 365. If you only want to do 1 day a month and open the doors, that's fine with us as well. But we need support of the people like yourselves out there in the community, because we cover the whole of Wales and beyond. So it's, you know, never worry that you haven't done much.
We have 8,000 visitors now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen your archives. I've seen your archives. I know, I know what your collection is, and I know that will come our way eventually. So thank you very, very much. This next group in Llandovery, the lady on the left, Annette, contacted us via the info at. We have a procedure where you can contact the team via the website, and Annette contacted us and asked if we could help them in some way. These ladies have worked tirelessly to rescue the museum artefact at Llandovery, which was painfully removed overnight almost from a location that it was housed in and dumped in a big container. And I'm glad to say now that the Black Lion in, am I right? Castle Hotel in Llandovery have provided them rooms where they've re-established the museum. And my team went out because I wanted the team to meet them. You know, when members change over, it's good for you to meet who's working. So this is just a little film of some of the items that Griffith and Berrien recorded of what's available at Llandovery. Some amazing pieces. But what's wonderful is that if you photograph these pieces and put them on the People's Collection Wales under your user profile, if somebody comes across them and is interested in a particular item, they're going to want to know where that is housed. And of course, one of the features of the website is the geolocating of all the items. So you don't just put the item up, you actually geolocate it to its location. And you can geolocate on a number of instances. You can say where it was found, or you can say where it's housed today. So I would imagine by using the People's Collection Wales and showing the items that you have, you could well find yourselves with more and more visitors coming to Llandovery. And I know that there are plans afoot in Llandovery to develop the Princes of Wales Museum. So hopefully, by the time that's established, your digital heritage station at Llandovery will be really up and running, and that will maybe bring visitors to the area. So we're really, really grateful to you. So the Tydfil, Merthyr Tydfil Library, now this particular digital heritage station started off life at the Engine House in Merthyr Tydfil, and you can guess who supported that and delivered that for us, Alan George and Steve Brewer. And we were really grateful to them. But because the National Library, and it's happening tomorrow apparently, so Sian and Jane were telling me, the monitors that are going to be taken to the Merthyr Library tomorrow means that there'll be this connection from tomorrow onwards between the National Library of Wales and the Merthyr Library. So we felt it was probably more appropriate to have the digital heritage station at the library as well, so that we can then go in and help Sian and Jane to train up volunteers. And Alan and Steve are already helping. But I know that Jane, we've discussed this so many weeks. We'll wait until they arrive. and then we'll come down as a team. But we're already down in Merthyr fairly regularly because Griffith Jones, who's a Merthyr boy, is actually delivering the 2-hour workshop that we do at Tidworth Training. So that's quite successful. So, you know, I can't wait. There's lots of opportunities there. But thank you for all that you've done already. And you have collections already on the website, which is great. And some wonderful images. So Pwrt Cawl, I've already mentioned David Swinbank, who's one of our champions. The Digital Heritage Station is set up there, and it's thanks to him and Stephanie. Stephanie's here somewhere with her daughter. There we are, brilliant. And these are volunteers that are running these places, you know, and what would we do if, I always say, if volunteers decided to take a day off, the country would come to a standstill, I'm sure. So we're really grateful to you all. Some amazing images. And I'm almost more nervous than ever with what I'm about to tell you now, because the person running Hanes Lambert and has been the main instigator for making sure that the museum was formed at the old Porter's Lodge in the university, Trinity St David, is none other than my old history teacher. And Avril said, he taught me as well, Hazel. So we both went to the same school. So forgive me, Selwyn, if I make any mistakes. But I do recall when I first, our paths have crossed over the years, but when we came to see you, when Caris and I came out to digitise some of your collections for Hanes Lambert, and you just said to me, so coming to my history lessons did actually make a difference then, Hazel. And although I didn't appreciate it as a young girl, I left home to go to London. But, you know, when you, as you get older, you appreciate the meaning of heritage. So now I really value all that I learned from you, sir. And I'm really grateful that you've set up the museum in Lampeter. And I sneakily went in last Saturday and took some of these photographs so we could show. And it's well worth you visiting. They've got some amazing images there. Some very special images of the old railway line from Lampeter to Aberystwyth. So it would be good for you to go and have a look. But the thing that I love the most, and this might be something for other digital heritage stations to consider, is that they've worked with the local council, and they are now also a tourist information drop-in centre. So the council have provided them with this wonderful little iPad, and they were able to show me that they can, because they have access to the Wi-Fi there, they can show the People's Collection Wales within the museum. So that I thought that was a really fabulous, fabulous idea. So I'm grateful to you for being here today. And I should have said as well, Professor David Austin was coming, but he was detained with work. Gaynor Parry, his wife, is here with us. So will you give him our sincerest thanks as well, because he's worked, all of you. And again, volunteers are running it and making sure that it's working. And just some of the images from Lampeter. And I can remember when we had the centenary in Lampeter, we all wore old-fashioned clothes, you know, for a whole week. And by the end of the week, I think it was a really hot week, it was disgusting. We had to have the same clothes on for the week, and then we had posher dresses for the evenings. But, you know, it's great. That looks like an old photograph, but it wasn't. It only happened, I forget now, Selwyn, when? 84. Brilliant, yeah. But, you know, it's just, they're memories, aren't they? They're all memories. So the Newtown Library, we were contacted by Carrie White, who had put an application in to HLF for the Powys Land Lle Hanes project, and they wanted to work with the People's Collection so that we could train the volunteers, because at the Eisteddfod in May this year, there will be a huge marquee showcasing the work of these heritage groups, and the People's Collection Wales will be a part of that stand, as will Cynefin. So there'll be a lot of representation of the National Library and all the partners within that marquee. So Rhian and Griffith, I believe, went out and did some training there. And then Rhian went to visit the Robert Owen Museum, because some of the people that run the museum came to the training. And while she was there, she opened an account for them straight away, because the gentleman said, how easy is this? And Rhian said, really easy. And she set that up for them. So I think Rhian's going to revisit to make sure that they upload a few more images. But as well as that, there were representatives from Llanfyllin Workhouse there, and they rang me the other day to say that they've just been awarded £39,000 from HLF, and they now want to work with the People's Collection to share those images and to gain more training or whatever. So where are we? There. That's it. So the National Library of Wales, we've just recently set up our digital heritage station here. And thanks to all the staff, thanks to Avril primarily for allowing us to do this just outside Ystafell y Gogledd, the West Reading Room, the North Reading Room, I beg your pardon. So if you have time today, go up and have a look, because I think we have 2 volunteers working there. So what we've actually done here is to work with a volunteering programme at the National Library of Wales, which is run by Gwyneth Davies. And thank you for being with us today, Gwyneth. She leads on that, and she's been doing an amazing job. There are so many volunteers that work here. But what you have to be careful of is that volunteers don't detract from the work of the staff at the library. So by going in and working with Gwyneth, we've been able to provide the volunteers with jobs to do, like digitising items, collections for other people. And these 2 particular ladies are actually from the Merched y Wawr down in town, who we went to train, but they now come up here to digitise. So it's shown us that it's a great service to offer, and it actually brings people in maybe that wouldn't normally come to the library. So that's been quite successful for us. The Llanelli House Digital Heritage Station started life as a combined effort between Llanelli House and the library, and the library in Llanelli started uploading all these images as part of the work that they did. But because of the cutbacks again, they found that they didn't have the time or the resources in staff to be able to fully function as a digital heritage station. So the kit was handed back to Llanelli House. And I'm really glad that Morgan Ward is with us today, the new house manager, because I think we're going to, after today, we're going to see what we can do again to pick up from where we left off and move with that. But the interesting thing that happened was during one of our Cymal training days in Swansea University, at Swansea University, we met with Tim Baker and Jodie from the Gwalia Care programme. They had been working with a very creative lady called Cheryl Beer. She's a singer-songwriter, and she had been asked to go into one of the care homes to work with a 92-year-old lady who suffered from Alzheimer's. And so Louie couldn't remember what she'd had for breakfast, but she could remember her childhood as if it was yesterday. So over a period of a few weeks, Cheryl worked with Louie, created these amazing stories of her life, and then recorded them, produced a book, and from the book, she gave us a copy, which we featured as one of our featured collections here on the left-hand side. Because Louie hadn't had a formal education, but some of the things she did as a young girl were unbelievable. She could remember her journeys on the bus from Llansteffan to Carmarthen, sharing the bus with animals, because that's the way they used to take the animals to market. So, and last week, believe it or not, Cheryl Beer has worked again with 2 more patients, with Betty and friends, and the Strang, what's his first name? George Strang, the strong man, and they're really moving, really moving stories, and they're now available to look at the People's Collection Ways. And if you stand up, Priyan, Cheryl also sent me, she's not silly, is she? A CD and a book. We've got 3 copies of those now, so we will probably deposit a copy of both here at the National Library so that they're kept forever. But I think these are just, these are just an amazing example of what you can do and how you can utilise the People's Collection. And Cheryl was supported by a gentleman called Nick Andrews, which I believe I met that day. Nick works out of Swansea University, but he leads on the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, which is looking at the way we treat people in care homes and how can we differ, how can we do that differently. And of course, the way we do it differently is to listen to them and ask their stories and make them feel important. And Cheryl and Nick, they're having their own launch day today to launch the 2 new books, I believe. But they want to use the People's Collection website to house the toolkits that you need if you're thinking of doing something similar. So I'm really excited about that, Tim. And I'm really grateful that you're here with us today from Gwalia, because you have now borrowed the Digital Heritage Station kit from Llanelli House, and you and Morgan can have little conversations at some point today and maybe see what we can do, you know, as a collaborative team, all of us together. So thank you. And you think that we only work in Wales, but we don't. And it's really exciting for me to be introducing you to this next digital heritage station in Pennsylvania. So, unbeknown to me, there was a group working in Pennsylvania looking at what they had of Welsh heritage interest, and that was being led across the pond by none other than Dr. Fred Long. Rhian said I'd make a mistake, but I'm not going to tell you why. It's something in my past. I was introduced to join monthly Skype meetings, which Fred organises here in Aberystwyth. And I'm going to let them tell their story in a little bit, but it's so exciting for me to think that Dave Williams has actually travelled over from Pennsylvania to be with us here today. So this tells you that we don't just work with Welsh heritage here in Wales. We are extending outwards and beyond. And I believe, Tom, you might have been party to the initial discussion. So maybe you'll get to chat to David as well during the break. But this is an example of some of the material. So if you want to look at their account, Where's PA, you'll see copies of the Drych from way, way back, which is amazing, all been digitised. But there's more than just one group, but I'm not going to spoil, I'm going to let the gentleman speak to you now in a minute about that. But this is a multi-part item. And the thing that concerned me when these first came through and I was moderating them was that the back of the covers of some of them are the names and addresses and telephone numbers of the people. And of course we have to protect identity of the people that use the People's Collection. So we have a protocol where we don't allow you to upload photographs of minors, young children without the consent of the family, and schools are asked to adhere to that rule. But also we don't put people's names and addresses up because that would be unkind. And when I think I emailed you, Dave, and asked, and you said, oh, it's fine. If you Google them, you can find it. And it's in America anyway, so it didn't really matter. So where have I gone here? Hang on. Okay. So I'm going to invite now both the gentlemen up to have a word with you, because there's more than one group, and I think they will do a better job of explaining all about that. But there is a group called Capel Rehoboth, Delta PA as well, who had opened up their own account. But what we managed to do was to create a collection of the Capel Rehoboth collection and embed that in the the Wales PA account. And I believe there are going to be further groups adding to that. So if you'd both like to come up and give your presentation, that would be really, really good. Thank you. Hang on. That one? Yeah? So can you get...
I asked Hazel to put that up because Pennsylvania it's not known universally, but Pennsylvania has a higher number of Welsh descendants in its state than any other state in the Union. At the last census, we had 200,000 people that checked off that they were of Welsh descent, and that was just the people that took the time to check it off, that they in fact were of Welsh descent. And I asked Hazel to put that back up because actually someone here at the National Library noticed this and did it. Our emblem up there in the left corner, green, of course, is Wales. The red is the state of Pennsylvania. Note how the eastern coast of the eastern border of Wales looks very much like the eastern border of Pennsylvania. So we've kind of adopted that as our symbol because we are such a Welsh state. There were more Welsh immigrants to Pennsylvania than any other state in the Union. So, as Hazel alluded to, we didn't really know anything about PCW when we started our project. We simply said we wanted to digitize and preserve all the history of all of these people coming to Pennsylvania before it was lost and gone forever. And so we started working away at that, and as we were stumbling around trying to figure out how to do this so it was available to everybody, PCW came to our attention, and I would certainly like to thank Hazel and the team sitting out here in front of us because you guys have done a great job for us. I mean, we've just made significant contributions. through the PCW. Linda, it's a great team. You should be proud of them. So right now, we're working out of Pittsburgh. They're the ones that have the most. Pittsburgh is way down in the southwest corner of Pennsylvania. But we've also been working as a digital heritage station, and we now have 4 other sites on board in Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh is about there.
Ah, there you go. Okay. That's why Fred is here. Delta, Pennsylvania, which is a heavy Welsh community, actually has, as Hazel showed and Fred will show you more, has actually populated the site. Philadelphia, which is by far and away the biggest Welsh community in Pennsylvania, and they're working on it. Scranton, which is the coal mining country of Pennsylvania, heavily Welsh, they're working on it. And also Sharon, Pennsylvania, which is like up on the western border of Pennsylvania. So besides Pittsburgh now, we now have all of those communities in Pennsylvania, and we brought them together mainly through one medium, and now we're starting to get other states involved, and that's the North American Festival of Wales. It meets the first weekend in September every year in a different city across the United States or Canada. This year, it's happening in Columbus, Ohio, and we think that Hazel should come to one. And so, on your way to Patagonia, you can just stop by because that's where we have a 1-hour meeting, and it's a 3-day session. So 1 hour is a good bit of time, and that's how we brought the other cities from around Pennsylvania in, and we also now have Illinois, New Jersey, and Minnesota interested in populating sites in there. And we also have Nebraska that actually has a site. I believe they're going to talk off, Fred? Maybe not. Great Plains, the Great Plains Heritage Project, which actually has started to put material on the website. So it started to spread. That's what we're doing as a digital heritage station. We're going to get as many people involved as possible. And thanks again to them. Fred will go into a little bit more of exactly what we're doing, but I'd just like to thank everybody again, because we could not have gotten this far without all the help we've gotten. You guys are great. You guys are fun to work with.
So that's one of the programs, as you can see, from St. David's Society of Pittsburgh banquet. We had material in Pittsburgh from the American Welsh language newspaper, Edrych, articles about the St. David's Society of Pittsburgh going back to about 1873. And these were translated into English by Martha Davis. And so we had the images from the newspaper and the translation available. And we started by digitizing those and then using optical character reading software to convert the English translation into text. So those articles are now available, and the text, of course, is searchable. And having put up all those Edrych articles, we then came across a lot of material like this. And there's also, I think the oldest thing we have is, apart from the Edrych articles, there's a Christmas Day Eisteddfod program from the St. David's Society of Pittsburgh of 1886, which we digitized, and that's available on the site. And then, as David said, we started involving other groups within Pennsylvania, and in particular, there was a group in Delta, Pennsylvania, associated with this capital of Rehoboth, and they had a lot of material that they wanted to preserve. Of course, the problem is, as you, I'm sure, all know, is just the sheer effort in scanning this material and documenting it all. But they became aware that there was a scout group that was looking for a community project so they could earn their Eagle Scout badge. And so they worked, the scouts did the donkey work of scanning all this material and entering the cataloguing the material into an Excel spreadsheet. And then this was passed over to the people here in the National Library, and they use the bulk uploading API to upload all the Capital Rehoboth material. So that's also now, it's a sort of separate collection, but under the Wales, Pennsylvania site. The material we're working on at the moment, there's a church, Salem Church, which was founded in 1839, about 70 miles east of Pittsburgh, in a very rural area. And they, again, have preserved a lot of the written material about that church. And they have what they call a homecoming every year. The church is now not used as a regular church. It's out in the middle of nowhere. But every year they have a homecoming, and there's a big congregation. And they, as I say, have preserved all this information, photographs of the congregations and written material. And so now we're in the process of digitizing that, and hopefully that will become available soon. So we're, as Dave said, involving lots of groups, not only in Pennsylvania, but across North America. And so we're really looking forward to the online tutorials when they become available, which will make it a lot easier for us to communicate how to do it to these groups across North America.
Thank you so much. Because we're running a bit later than we'd hoped, I'm hoping that's because we're all enjoying, or I hope I'm not stretching it out too much, but if you're all happy still, what we've decided as a thank you is to give each of our Digital Heritage Station a plaque, which contains all the logos from National Library, National Museum, the Royal Commission and the Welsh Government. So I'd like to take the opportunity of making our first presentation to these two wonderful gentlemen to take back to Pennsylvania, and then afterwards we'll invite all the other Digital Heritage Stations down, and you will all be awarded a plaque as well. So on behalf of all of us, so thank you very much. Thank you. Which way do you want to go?